Happy Father's Day from CSL.
Oh,
Go.
oh, what a wonderful day that we're celebrating. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Come join us. We're having great fun today.
We really are. And all the fathers get a nice gift.
That's right. Ariane.
Good morning, Julius, and anyone else that's out there listening. This is the Center for Spiritual Living in Las Vegas. We welcome you to come to our services or any other fun stuff like bingo where you can get things like this. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Just close your eyes for a moment. And take a few deep breaths. Bringing yourself to center. And let's just embrace this thing called Father's Day. That masculine energy, which is so important in each of our lives. And even if it wasn't your dad necessarily, as we think of dad, there's someone in your life, I'm sure, that maybe played the role of dad. And so just bring that to mind. As we hear someone speak about their dad.
So I'm going to start. I was told, so for a long time, thank you. I'm told by my mom and my dad, my grandma, my brother, that when I was born, when my dad laid eyes on me and held me for the first time, he fell in love so deep, he was overwhelmed. Well, I love my dad so deeply, and I know I will always love him. I'm sorry. He's always there for me, like when I have theater and he has to drive me back and forth and he's extremely tired from work. I know I can talk to him about anything, and sometimes, he doesn't listen, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because sometimes I just need to get it out, and I don't really want him to get all involved in it. So it's just great to be able to, talk to someone about it without them putting their full input into it. And I know he cares. And sometimes I think, oh, it's just a man thing, because most of the time it's like men do that. But I choose to think that is just because he does care, My dad is absolutely my male role model. So I can talk to him about things, and he gives me different perspectives on from a man's view than when I talk to my mom, who gives me a completely different perspective, which is really fun. I don't believe it's possible to love anyone as much as I love my dad, even if he's annoyed at me or I'm annoyed at him. We love each other, and he cares about me so much. There are a lot of different types of dads, but I believe mine's the best. My dad is absolutely the funniest person I know. We've been through so much as a family.
It's okay. God, it's okay, sweetheart.
We've been through so much as a family. That's hurt us all. It's been tough. But I know at the end of the night when we play a family game, he'll always make us laugh. And he'll make Mom laugh so hard that she will always pee her pants. And so it makes us all feel better about the situation. It makes it easier to get through it. One of my favorite memories with my dad is when I was younger, we would always go to Home Depot once a month, and they would have this little activity thing planned where we could go in the back of the shop and build stuff and paint it. And it was really fun, and I got to see all my dad's handy skills, and it was a really great bonding experience for us, and I really loved being able to spend all that time with him. My dad is a dad of 14, including all of our animals. And he has one grandchild, which is my cat. She's my daughter. And he's a pretty spectacular dad / grandpa. He takes care of all of us, making sure we're safe. And I know this at the ripe old age of 11, that I look forward to spending many more Father's Day with him, making so much more memories. and I feel blessed and so thankful to have him as my dad. I love him so much, and nothing could ever change that. There is one power. That power is love, peace, joy, harmony, balance, and prosperity. That life is perfect. I am one with that power, and I am love, peace, joy, harmony, balance, and prosperity, as is each person here this morning. I'm grateful for each person here, all the volunteers, and the wonderful teaching. I am grateful for all the fathers, especially my own, who I know loves me unconditionally. He always does his very best to give his time, love, talent, and treasure to me. I am so blessed. I am grateful for each father here because without them, we would not be here in this expression. No matter what, I know that each dad did his best to provide what they could for each child to grow. I release this prayer into the law, which always says, yes, I let go and let it be, and so it is. Amen.
You needed tissue, water, a fan. I needed everything from that. Teo, you're incredible. The love you have for your dad is so beautiful to witness. I'm so happy that you could be here to hear that little thing talk about our daddy. Come on, Teo.
Come on now. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. I accept things the way they are. I accept things the way they are not. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. I love gracefully. I give freely. Yes, I reap abundantly. Yes, you do. I already have everything I need. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Yeah, yeah. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Got it, that's right. I accept things the way they are. I accept things the way they are not. Yes, something wonderful is happening to me right now. You believe what you're saying? I love gracefully. Yes, I give freely. Woo! I reap abundantly. Yeah, I already have everything I need. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. You like it? Feels good? Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Oh, I accept things the way they are, and I'll accept things the way they are not. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. It's crazy good. I love gracefully. I give freely. I reap abundantly. Yeah, I already have everything I need. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Here we go, let's take it home. I know it in my mind. I feel it in my body. So it is. So it is. So it is. So it is. And so it is.
I had to fit that in there. You hear me?
Yes, Patty Powers and Dave.
I love you guys.
While you're standing, put your hand over your heart and if it's comfortable for you, and just say with me, God bless America and the rest of the world. And if you would turn to a neighbor and just greet them this morning. This month is Pride Month, and actually here in Las Vegas they don't actually do anything till October, but actually they could have done something, right? They didn't. They could have had a parade or something this month because the weather has been cooperating. I mean, May was kind of a mild month, and you know, I know the reason was because of the weather, I think, but that's just in my mind. Again, a scary place. But we have a video to show to you for a little history. Things I didn't know, but you know, you all probably know everything because you're all so smart.
I'm Jeanette Egan, a member of the Center for Spiritual Awareness in West Sacramento, California. Welcome to Did You Know? American History. This segment provides you with historical information about gay pride and the Americans who made a difference. These trailblazers influenced how we live, think, work, and play in our everyday lives. Gay pride is the positive stance against discrimination and violence towards lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. Gay pride promotes equal rights, self-affirmation, dignity, and increased visibility. It celebrates sexual and gender diversity and bridges communities.
I'm Tim Garcia, a member of the Board of Trustees of CSA. In the mid-20th century, homosexual relationships were illegal. It was against the law in most jurisdictions for members of the same sex to even dance together. Transgender citizens could be thrown in jail just for wearing clothes of the opposite gender, and queer people were legally harassed by law enforcement and lived in fear of losing their jobs or even their families. By 1969, though, the community had had enough. On the night of June 28th, when police again raided the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, the patrons fought back. The next night, more than 1,000 people showed up to demand equality and stand up to the police. The modern-day LGBTQ rights movement was born. On the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots, in June 1970, there were marches in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. By 1972, Boston, Dallas, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, San Francisco, and even London and Paris joined in. And the marches became parades with colorful expressions of the LGBTQ community. In 2000, President Bill Clinton became the first U.S. president to issue a presidential proclamation declaring June to be LGBTQ Pride Month.
My name is Amanda Craig, with this segment of Did You Know Trivia. The first rainbow flag made its debut at the San Francisco Pride Parade in 1978. Designed by San Francisco artist Gilbert Baker, the original flag was hand-dyed, reflecting the diversity of the LGBTQ community. Eventually, the pink and turquoise were dropped, resulting in the six-stripe flag that is widely used today.
We celebrate our victories, mourn our losses, and stand up for love. Never forgetting we are unique, whole, perfect, and complete manifestations of God. We at CSA look forward to providing more rich content throughout the year that highlights, uplifts, and celebrates us all, because we believe that together, and only together, can we co-create a world that works for everyone.
A couple of other letters have been added to that since that video was made. We're about love here, people. Just want to remind everyone of that. And speaking of love, we have a speaker here today. You know, first, before I introduce her, who came to bingo yesterday?
Woo! It was fun.
Woo! It was packed. I mean, people are at, I said, I gotta go do some things. No, we want to know when the next bingo is. I'm like, I don't know, I just got here. So it was a lot of fun. I ended up calling at the end because I didn't play because I wasn't eligible to win anything. So because I asked and Yvonne said, you know, she was kind of sure. It wasn't a sure. It was okay if you want to. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not eligible. Stacy and Dan already told me that. All right. Did I tell you who I was? Reverend Cheryl Bell, co-senior ministers, along with Reverend Stacy and Reverend Dan Jerome. Woo woo. We're a trio. I won't tell you what Dan calls us. I just won't. So, we have a wonderful speaker here today who's going to give us a power talk, what we call a power talk. It's Reverend Lvcsl. She's a licensed clinical psychologist whose subject matter expertise on health psychology, military psychology, and spirituality is highly regarded. Dr. Galante has extensive experience working with active duty military members and veterans, healing trauma and optimizing health. As an ordained interfaith minister, Rev Val, as we call her, provides spiritual guidance and direction for those seeking to understand their experience. Rev Val provides her unique insights regarding non-duality, the meaning of our existence, our purpose and the nature of reality, and as a published author of 7 books, Rev Val shares her voice across genres. Her formal education includes a BA in psychology from Rutgers University, an MA in theoretical psychology from Fairleigh Dickinson University, a PhD in clinical psychology from Hofstra University, a postdoctoral fellowship in health psychology at Michigan State University, and ordained as an interfaith minister by the All Faith Seminary International in NYC. Currently residing here with us in Las Vegas, Rev Val divides her time between spiritual guidance, writing, and consulting. Her mission is to inspire positive changes in the hearts, minds, and spirits of people around the world through education, empowerment, and enlightenment. Hey, you know why we love her right there. To achieve this end, she founded the Sanctuary of Unconditional Love, SOUL, Soul, a nonprofit spiritual teaching center in Las Vegas that focuses on teaching non-duality and A Course in Miracles. Wow! And even though this is her first time here on a Sunday, she has come and spoken with us and has had a class here called Conscious Communication, which we love that. So I would like to welcome to the stage Rev Val.
It was so funny because, thank you. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Blinded by the light. I thought when they reeled over the steps that they were for me. So when our speaker got up, I'm like, oh shit. Because I know I'm short, right? It was such a moving talk that your daughter gave, and I have to say this is the first Father's Day since my dad passed. And I'm like, you guys are killing me. Yeah, now I'm going to give the power talk, but that's okay. So welcome everybody, I'm thrilled to be here with you. And the topic today is on creating meaningful conversations. Every conversation has to have a starting point, right? And every starting point is going to begin with a person's point of view, right? And what determines that point of view? That point of view is determined by the person's foundational beliefs, what they fundamentally believe about themselves, about others, and about the world, right? You with me so far? I'm building a case. Our direct experience is comprised of that which we have been exposed to firsthand, people, places, events in our lives, right? We've directly experienced these things. But our indirect experience is that which we've experienced through seeing, witnessing, hearing, and maybe vicariously learning through the experiences of others. I can't move too much with this. And it's by these indirect experiences that we really can extend our direct experience, right? I'm going to take this out. Right? Because we're limited in what we can directly experience. So by learning through seeing and hearing and witnessing and indirectly, vicariously living through others, we extend our experiences, right? Yes. So all of our conversations from the start are going to be limited by the base of knowledge and experience that we hold, right? So, and they're going to be also limited by the concepts that we assume everybody knows because that's what's in our mind, right? And it can be challenging to see outside of our own mind, right? All right. So we all have these limitations. How many people are aware of their limitations? Be honest. Every hand better go up in this room. I want to see every hand. So we all have to, but we probably don't even realize, right? Some of the many biases and assumptions that we operate and function under every day. We probably just don't have full awareness of them until we encounter another person who does not operate under those same biases and assumptions, right? Then you're like, what's wrong with him or her, right? They don't think like I do. If you have never traveled, if you have never tasted the food of other cultures, if you have never walked in the shoes of a person whose experiences are radically significantly different than your own, then how do you begin to understand that person? And how do you begin to create a meaningful conversation with them? It can be a challenge, right? So what is your frame of reference for engaging that person who's so different from you in a meaningful conversation? Now, it's come up recently, right? And who was at the screening of the documentary on Wednesday? Wasn't that wonderful?
Yes.
And so it's come up recently, these differences between Muslims, let's say, and non-Muslims, right? That's one of the areas, but it's Gay Pride Month, right? There's differences between straight people and gay people. Sometimes it's hard to find a frame of reference to connect. By the way, another trivia fact that wasn't included in that video, the first version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders listed homosexuality as a mental illness. Yeah. And that was until further recently, I must say. So, did you know the challenge, are you guys aware of the challenge that you have? Have you ever met a person who's very, very different from you, or who lives from a different culture? And do you remember the challenge that you had finding common ground to begin a conversation with them? Who remembers? Yes? Were you able to do it?
Yes.
Were you able to find common ground? Wonderful. So, let me just give you an example. There are some indigenous people who live off the land who don't understand the basic concept of shapes. Shapes! Shapes of all things! What? There's an indigenous group called the Munduruku who live in isolated villages in Brazil, in the Amazon jungles. They have no words in their language for square, rectangle, triangle, or any other shape. Think about it. Why would someone in a jungle need to have words for those things? Do you see many triangles in the jungle? No, so that's why they don't have words. They have a word for circle. That's why. They use no words to measure. They have no compasses. They have no instruments or maps. They have no words for direction, right? Hold on a second. Pages are sticking together. The only words they have for direction are sunrise, sunset, upstream, and downstream. Because that's all they need. That's their frame of reference, right? So the Mundu-Kuru language has limited words for even numbers. They use few and many. And they don't even use those words very consistently because they don't really care about measurement. So aside from the language differences, right? Let's assume you guys spoke the same language. How would you begin to engage in conversation, in a meaningful conversation with a Munduruku person? How would you do that? How would you begin a meaningful conversation with a person whose religion or culture is significantly different than your own? Have you ever thought about it? Does it not begin with a willingness and an openness to connect, right? To find that common ground? And doesn't that willingness and openness have to flow from a sense of curiosity? I want to know about you. I want to know about you. I want to know about all of you, right? Healthy curiosity. And doesn't that curiosity develop from compassion and a desire for connection, right? And isn't compassion energized, put into action by love? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, it is. So if we were to begin all of our conversations with love, if love became our new starting point, what? Wouldn't that change the way we converse? Right? If that's our starting point, that's our starting point. So, what is the opposite of love? Some people say hate.
Fear.
The opposite is not hate. Some people say indifference or apathy. The opposite is not apathy. Who said fear? The opposite of love is fear. The opposite of love is fear. And think about the difference in tone of a conversation that uses love as a starting point versus fear as a starting point. Think about the difference. Think about all the conversations that people are involved with that spew hate or ignorance or apathy or judgment or grievances or condemnation. What do they all have in common?
Fear.
Fear. Fear is their base, right? So this is true whether it's a private conversation between friends, spouses, congregants, or whether it's a public conversation or some sort of speech that involves many people, right? If their fear is the base, if fear is the motivation, that's going to be very different than if it starts from love. So how can we affirmatively, positively change both private and public conversations so that they're meaningful? How can we do that? We can change the conversations by shifting that starting point from what to what? Fear to love. From fear to love. You guys are fast learners. But talking about love, right? We're all in this room, we're talking about love, we're talking about compassion, we're talking about spirituality. We all feel good, we're on that high. But that's not enough, right? Talking about compassionate communication is meaningless unless we put it into action, right? Faith without works is dead. So how will you put love into the meaningful conversations that you create in your life? How are you going to do it? Let's think about this for a minute, right? Because that's kind of a challenge, right? We all want to do it, but it's like, maybe I'll start on Tuesday. You know, I'm not really feeling it right now. So think about a topic or a cause or a person that's associated with divisiveness. I'm sure there's some things come to mind, right? So for example, abortion, climate change, Donald Trump. Whichever way you lean, there's divisiveness, yes? Now close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Close your eyes if you want to, you don't have to. And imagine a conversation between two people who have opposing views on that topic, on that cause, on that person. What do you imagine that conversation looks and sounds like? Can anybody want to tell me? What does that conversation sound like? Arguing? Stressful, somebody said? Anything else? Is it loving? No. It's not loving. Most likely it's not loving, right? So imagine you're a person feeling sad, feeling misunderstood, feeling separate. Maybe you're a Muslim person, right? And you're feeling as though the world is against you. How do you change this? Are you imagining? Is everybody imagining? Imagine you're that sad, separate person feeling like the world is against you. How do you change it? The answer is simple. Stop imagining. Stop imagining. Why do I say that? Because the truth is, there is no separation. There is no separation. We're all connected, right? We're all connected. Why do I have to imagine that I'm separate from all of you beautiful people? We're not, right? We have to remind ourselves of that. So when you ask yourself, how can I put love into action? How can I make love the starting point of all my conversations? How do I do that? The answer is what? It's already done. You don't have to do anything. It's who and what we are, right? Aren't we all love?
Yes.
Who isn't love in here? Get out right now. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody's welcome, right? It's what we are. It's who and what we are. Does a tree ask itself how to be a tree? No. Does an elephant ask itself how to be an elephant? No. They just are. That's all they are. They don't get in their own way. We're the only species on this planet that gets in our own way, right? Love of self and others is what every single faith, religious, and ethical tradition on this planet from the beginning of time has espoused and instructed. Y'all have that handout on the golden rule is universal? They're all saying the same thing. They're all saying the absolute same thing. And even if you're non-religious, even if you're agnostic, even if you're a humanist, even if you're an atheist, there's still an ethical code that basically says treat others as you would want to be treated. Some version of that, right? So we don't need to do anything except unlearn the barriers to love that we have imagined in our mind. That's it, right? So I have to finish up with a quote from Ernest Holmes, because I'm in the house. Ernest Holmes said, where the mind goes, energy flows, right? So said another way, energy flows where attention goes. So when you focus your attention on the person with whom you're having a conversation, that energy will be infused in that conversation. And that energy will be felt beyond the words, right? And what is felt, what is shared in that conversation is love. That's our starting point. It's always there. Just let it be. Thank you.
Sometimes I don't feel like I'm all alone. I'm going to imagine it. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I know that what I have is already here. And what I need is already here. I have that. This song, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. This song, Matt did not know that his beautiful daughter was going to once sing it with him. He had no idea. My dad was a singer for Dave. My dad was a singer, and he was tremendous. And I would like to sing this for all the dads. And for my dad.
I'm
Spectacular. Dave, you are too. Rev Val. The problem with having people do these power talks is they, on the same subject, is that they're so good that I have nothing left to say. I haven't spoken yet. What's going on?
We haven't called the
No, we haven't called the ushers up yet. No. That was just the first song. No, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I won't keep you that much longer though, I promise. Jeez. Yeah, that means 2 offerings.
Oh, we do.
Thank you though. You were very quick too.
We're right there.
I was like, did I miss something? Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's been one of those days, I must say. One of those days so far. So happy Father's Day. I am Reverend Stacy Hilton, one of the co-senior ministers, along with Reverend Dan and Reverend Cheryl. And happy Father's Day to all you wonderful dads. And my friend Lewis is here with his daughter, beautiful daughter. Happy Father's Day, Lewis. He's from LA. Yeah, yeah. So, I don't have my notes. So I have my notes on my phone. So I'm not checking Facebook, just so you know. Taya is amazing. And I know she wasn't feeling well. And I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. And so, Anthony, you're amazing. And Joan, you're amazing. So. I appreciate her saying yes to doing that. And I know she had some butterflies, I'm sure. She was, you know, she's a pro. So happy Father's Day to my dad, Arthur Twine Hilton. On Mother's Day, I called my mom, when I spoke in Antelope Valley, I called my mom, and she got a big kick out of that. My dad would not, he's not that kind of guy. He's kind of shy and reserved, and he'll be like, "Hi, Stacy." "Yeah, thank you." I did text him this morning, and, well, since I have my phone, let's see what he said. Thank you, your sister and your brother give joy and purpose forever. Love, Dad. Yeah. So I was thinking about, the talk title, as we know, is Creating Meaningful Conversation. And the theme of the month is empowerment. And I cannot tell you the many ways, all the many ways that my dad has empowered me to be this person that I am standing here right now. And I thought about some of those meaningful conversations some of the most meaningful conversations that he and I had had. And the first one that I remember, I think I was about 4 years old, and he had a blue Datsun. And on Fridays, he would pick me up, and we would go pick up my mom downtown LA. And, you know, at 4, it was a 15-minute, 20-minute car ride, but it seemed like it was, well, it probably would be 2 hours these days in LA. But it just seemed like it took forever. And so he said, "Well, you know, you can create anything you want, Stacey." I said, "So I can change this car ride to be 5 minutes?" He said, "Sure." And I said, "Okay, Dad." I thought it was one of those made-up dad things that day I was talking about. And so he said, "Just pick a word and say that word whenever there's a red light," because I was complaining about the red lights. "But pick a word and say that word whenever there's a red light, and then the light will change." So I did it. So he's like, "Well, what's the word going to be?" I said, "Milky Low." He's like, "Okay." Now he hoped this, obviously, by either speeding up and slowing down as we got to the light, but every light was green. As I said, he said, "Okay, say it, Milky Low." And then it would be a green light. Step in how to manifest. So thank you, Dad. I appreciate that. The second one, what was the second one? It's in my notes here. The second one was, I thought about him today when, this has nothing to do with what he taught me, but I remember how dads can be so cool sometimes when you think that they're going to just blow their top. I was at prom, and my, it's a crazy story.
I've heard.
We asked the janitor at our school, me and my best friend, Sonia, we asked the janitor at our school to be our limo driver. We didn't have a limo, but we had a Lincoln Town Car. So we asked him to be the driver, and he said yes. And he ended up getting a DUI the night of prom. So I was the only person in the car. My date didn't have a driver's license. Sonia didn't have a driver's license, and her boyfriend didn't have a driver's license. So I had to bring the car home. So, you know, it's like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and I'm like, you know, I've got this dress on, and I'm like, what am I going to tell my dad that why am I driving this car? And the car's going to be in the driveway. He didn't say, he's like, yeah. I said, he got arrested for a DUI. He was like, okay. Now I'm sure he must have gone in his room and just kind of yelled or something, but he was just so cool about it. He was so cool about it. I just thought that came to mind today. It was funny to me. So yeah, other things not so cool, but he was very cool that day. So thank you, Dad, for that. Science of mind point of view about creating meaningful conversations. The individual is empowered by speaking clearly about whatever condition is happening, and through that, coming to the awareness and embodiment that all there really is God. The one practicing must be able to look a fact in the face and know that all manifestations are effects and can be changed by changing the mental cause. We've become, as a society, kind of a shallow society. Would you say? A little bit? We look at, except for the crazy Facebook posts, but you know, you look at Instagram, we're taking pictures of our food, we text, we don't really talk on the phone, we don't really have much to say. You sit there at the dinner table, you're texting somebody else, you're not speaking to the person in front of you. We're not really talking about what's going on. And how do we create a world that works for everyone if we're not discussing that which is going on? We're so distracted all the time that it is just, I don't know what we're going to do here. I don't have to know though. I don't have to know, but I know that one of the things that we have to do is start from love and connect with one another as opposed to connecting on Facebook with our 5,000 friends.
I agree.
Just saying. I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm just saying.
5,000 foot.
No, I think I have 2,000. Yeah, I have 2,000 friends, sure. You know, I mean, it's just, we've gotten to a place where we just are so willing to not talk about the tough stuff. It's really, really kind of sad on some level. It's really kind of sad. So how do we get to that place where we can talk about stuff? You know, Wednesday nights is really the night that we kind of tackle all the tough stuff. I don't normally do that. I do it a little bit here. I kind of scratch the surface, but Wednesday night is more about Wednesdays at the Well, that going deeper and kind of tackling the worldly things, not necessarily the worldly things from a spiritual perspective. You know, this week I have, because of course, the topic is creating meaningful conversation. I've had some tough conversations with people. I've had some stuff come up. Minister's blog, which I talk about quite frequently, there's this big thing about the whole white ally thing and white supremacy. And we don't want to talk about that. I know you're getting uncomfortable. I promise I'm not going to go there too much further into it. However, it's a big thing. And if we don't talk about it, how do we get to a resolution? Because we are all here like-minded to some degree, but if none of us want to talk about it because it feels like it, you know, I don't want to talk about that. I'd rather take a picture of my food. I mean, how are we gonna solve that? How are we gonna get to the next place? And maybe it's not ours to do, but I think that I have a responsibility to leave this world a little better than when I got here. I don't know, anybody else feel that way?
Yeah.
You know, how do you talk about climate change? There's, polarizing views. How do you talk about Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement? What do you do? I mean, yeah, you start from love, and you have some compassion, and you realize that the person sitting across from you doesn't have the same perspective, and you still carry on with the conversation. You don't text your friends. What do you think about that? That's interesting. That's a different point of view. We don't have to yell and scream and jump up and down and act crazy, although I've been known to do that, I must admit. Couple.
It was an accident, I'm so sorry.
Telling tales out of school again. A couple weeks ago, there was an accident in the parking lot. Some of you were there. And I won't say who it was, but those that were there know that there was who was there. Obviously. Those who were there knew they were there. But the people that were hit were so unkind. It just is not okay how we speak to one another. And I know that there's a reason probably why that's kind of going on, but I don't know whether it's the chicken or the egg. Why would you speak to someone in a way that you don't want to be spoken to? I mean, it's just really not okay. And so we set the example. We get to do it. We'll be the models for that. We'll be the model for that? Yeah. And so I went and, we came to a resolution. And, I walked the lady in and I just said, you know what? Your son has no business talking to anybody like that. It's not okay. I said, well, you're right. And he apologized. I don't know how sincere it was, but he apologized. And we moved forward. But at some point, and I usually try to, I'm not going to get in it. But, they looked like they were going to come to blows, almost. Now, I don't want to get hit. And I don't want to, it's still not on my watch. It's my job to say something if somebody is out of line that's going to possibly hurt somebody else. So, that's what I think about that. Sorry, my notes are on here, so. Many of us have kind of subscribed to that old belief, we don't talk about religion and politics. Really? Why not? We talk about it, we watch it all the time. It's on the news all the time. We're in it. Why would we not talk about it? Why would we not discuss it? Why would you not tell me your point of view? Why? I had class earlier this year, and some people, completely different political views. Never talked about it. It wasn't the easiest conversation to have, and it was probably one of those times when Cheryl was over there doing the amen in the amen quarter saying, yeah, that's, I was kind of up in arms. And you know what? It was okay. It was okay. I didn't die from it. We all came through probably learning a little bit about one another. Isn't that what it's about? How could you possibly think like me? And how could I possibly think like you? And why would we expect that? Now I have views that, in my crazy little mind, that it would make sense that you would think this way, but just because my crazy little mind tells that to me, doesn't mean that it's true. And so let's take that step forward to move into a place where we are actually speaking and connecting on a deeper level with people and stop all this craziness. It's just not healthy. I have an affirmation here. Oh, the movie Free Trip to Egypt. Rev Val brought that to us, and so we all had a little field trip. I went to Santa Fe Station on Wednesday night. 20 of us went. And so it was really good to see that people were interested in seeing this point of view. And so what the premise was this gentleman offered a free trip to Egypt so that people that were, I think they're all from down south, could see how Muslims lived. And they came away with a wonderful experience, not anything like what they thought Muslims were. Because when I connect with you one-on-one, it's not going to be the craziness. We have things in common. We have things, our same likes. We have similar dislikes. We're just people. There's just the one thing going on here. Just the one thing. And that is God in expression. We don't all look alike. That's all. But basically, we want the same things. Basically, we want the same things. This phone thing is really too much. Who went on the hike and the barbecue? Who participated in that? Not just went on it, but the hike and barbecue with Metro? Rich? Yvonne? Yeah, Aldo? So, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Cheryl and I make a conscious effort to work with the police department. Why? I'm going to say it, because we're black women. Because we're black. And it's important to see that it's all not, that we can get along with the police and we don't hate the police. It's an important thing. They work for us, they protect and serve, and we work with them. I mean, there has to be some sort of, somebody saying, okay, I'll go first. They're a wonderful police department. So they took out 30 kids and did this hike, and we had a barbecue for them. So we provided, and many of us gave money, and we did the barbecue for them. It was a wonderful event. The sad part about it, there was not one kid of color. Now I have to ask myself why. And I can make an assumption, but maybe my assumption is wrong. But could it have something to do with fear? Could it have something to do with that? Now, I'm not saying the police are always right, because that is certainly not the truth. That's a whole other thing for a whole other day, probably a Wednesday night. But these police went out of their way to get 30 kids out of the community and say, hey, would you like to come for a free walk with us, hike with us, and a free barbecue? And not one kid of color? It's a little odd. So I tend to address that with Officer Mir, who is a Muslim woman from the mosque down the street, who is helping Reverend Cheryl and I build this whole new interfaith group. We all have to do our part. I don't know what that is for you. Some days I don't know what it is for me. But we've got to do our part to create a world that works for everyone. We really do. I have an affirmation for you. So I'm going to say it and then you repeat after me. As I listen with an open heart and soft... It's one of those days. I'm going to say it and you repeat. Okay? As I listen with an open heart and soft eyes, I find truth has unexpected dwelling places. Until I remember there is one of us. As I listen with an open heart and soft eyes, I find truth has unexpected dwelling places. Until I remember there is one of us. I love you all. I support you all. Thank you for supporting us. We're doing great work in the community, and there's going to be much more great things coming our way. I love you.
She's right, there are great things coming our way. I was trying to think of some really appropriate music for Father's Day and the talk title. And I thought about this. This beautiful man wrote this song for his beautiful daughter, Aisha.
Isn't she lovely? Life and love are the same. Life is Aisha. The meaning of her name. Lonely, you could have never done without you. She's so very lovely. She's made from love.
All right, I would like to ask our ministers to please come forward. That's Reverend Dan, Reverend Stacy. Any visiting ministers? And Reverend Wanda and Reverend Patricia. Any visiting ministers or practitioners, please come forward. And I would also I'd like to ask our ministerial prayer team, our licensed practitioners, to please come forward. And they'd be happy to pray with you after service if you wish. We also have a prayer box where you can put a prayer in the box. There's one here that says God's Pocket, and there's also one in what we call the Grand Hall. Or you can pick up an affirmation. There's so many things you can... Look at them.
What's about bingo? I'm talking about bingo.
Oh my gosh!
She was the first winner and I was the last.
Oh really? Oh yeah, you did win, but you had the hula hoop because she tricked us and did a fake bingo. She said bingo after the first number was called. So you get punished a little bit.
Yeah, I was punished. I think they got punished and watched it.
Because it was a little kid's hula hoop. Yeah, this is true. All right. You know, I'd like to ask all of you to stand and connect as Reverend Stacy gives us a closing prayer.
Yeah, you know, it was on my phone, I just have my notes in front of me.
Hey, turn her on.
I would,
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read this from the Contemplative Life. So if you would close your eyes with me, well, I'm not going to read and close my eyes with you.
I want to see it.
One of those days. That's one of those days. Yeah. Okay, so close your eyes with me and just listen to this. That's Joel Goldsmith. And so from the moment that we consciously perceive that we are always in the bosom of our Father, I'm going to leave it that way for today, and always one with our source, indivisible and inseparable from that source, it becomes clear to us that all that is flowing forth from that life stream, all that emanates from that infinite source, is pouring itself into, through, and from our individual consciousness. And so as we close out today, we again say thank you for our fathers. Thank you for the love, the support, the many, many gifts that those dads did to empower each of us. I'm grateful for the knowingness that each of us has a responsibility and can make a commitment today to empower, to embrace, to start conversations off with love, to be compassionate, to remember who each of us is and stop imagining. Just remember, there's just the one thing going on. Spirit and expression. It's all love. So it's from that place I send everybody forth knowing that they have a wonderful rest of their days, celebrating all the dads. And so it is. So it is. Let's sing our peace song.
There's peace on earth, and now it begins with me. Yes, there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our power, loved ones all are free.
my body.